Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop, and welcome to Shop Talk number 125. We Shop Talks started out with me trying to be helpful with people's questions and comments and things about building and repairing musical instruments. I'd still like to keep it that way. If you do have questions about musical instruments, one way or the other, repair or building or anything else, just feel free to leave those in the comment section today and start them with some question marks. We've got a number of topics to talk about today, and we'll go ahead and get to those. Presently, we're at 95,151 subscribers just before we went live. And that number's actually been fluctuating, going up and down. And, do I expect to not ever lose any subscribers? Well, with our new format, I know I was going to lose some subscribers. There's no doubt about it. Because some people are only here for the instruments, and the instruments, unfortunately, are a little bit beyond my scope of things at this time to work on. One of the questions that keeps coming up is, how are my hands now that I'm not working on the instruments? And the truth is, the hands are not getting any better. I keep talking about why I gave up the instrument business. And, at one point I said I felt like I got away with something, but I didn't completely explain all that either. One of the things I feel like I got away with is not dropping a tool on an expensive instrument. I mean, these guitars and things I'm working on, $5,000 to $10,000 is kind of a norm, and you drop a chisel on the top of one of those, it's going to look ugly. And with the kind of arthritis that I have, that's one of the common things that happens. You drop a lot of stuff. And like I said, I feel like I got away with something. I didn't drop anything on an instrument. I mean, I have over the years, but not recently is what I mean. It wasn't because of the arthritis if I did drop something on an instrument. Anyway, the point being, just moving on here, and people keep asking, so I just want to let you know they're not getting any better. In fact, the pain is probably a little worse just about every day, it seems like. My internet speed, you know that I did go to fiber optic internet. It was so funny to me because it was 2 or 3 years ago. People kept saying, you need to get fiber optic. And I just basically stood up on the soapbox and said, there ain't no way I'll ever get fiber optic. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere. Nobody's going to bring fiber optic out here, And I was thinking in terms of like a phone company. Well, turns out the very next day, the Gasco Sage Electric Company announced they were going to bring fiber optic out to all their customers. And I went, whoa! And what's really cool about that, and I knew I'd be included because basically right behind my head there's a main line that goes, it's just about a half a mile down the valley there behind my head. There's a main line that goes over the hill to the town of Newburgh, to their substation. So, I mean, we're right off of the main line. So I knew that, I'd be within reach to get fiber optic after I heard them announce that. And, of course, it took quite a while. It took a couple of years, but we've got it now. And so just to give you an update, the speeds are great. I mean, they're just absolutely great. Now, the guys installing it said, oh, you'll get right at 1 gig. You will. Well, I've never really got 1 gig, and I didn't expect I would because, they always quote it higher than you get. But I've been getting in the 700s, 600s. I'll tell you what, that's good. That's really good because the best I ever got was with Starlink, and that was just a little over 100 on certain occasions. So to get, 6 or 7 times that and pay $50 less a month, that's like a big win-win. So I'm really tickled. It's really awesome. Another one of the questions, and we'll see it in our questions today, but I might as well just answer it since I'm on that subject, is someone did ask, have you decided when you're going to run your fiber optic between the shop and the house? And I am going to do that, but I'm going to wait on that until wintertime probably, because the ticks and chiggers down in that ditch are just relentless. They really are. You just have no idea how bad the ticks and chiggers are here. So I'll just wait until, and it's also crazy hot, so I might as well just wait till it's better weather and get rid of the ticks and chiggers. In hindsight, I probably really don't even need to run the fiber optic up to the house, because just the wireless between the house and here, I mean, up in the house, I'm getting well over 100 megabits per second, and anything over 20, you can stream videos. I mean, really even less than that. But for sure, anything over 20, you can for sure stream videos. Well, we're getting 120, if not more, in the house just with the wireless connection. Now, of course, when I run the fiber, it'll even be better. So, I already bought the fiber optic, so I might as well run it, and I will do that eventually. But like I said, I'll just wait for the weather and the ticks to go away. My horse trailer project that, is just seems like the never-ending project from where. Oh my gosh, that thing. The day we bought that, I knew we were buying crap, and I said, we shouldn't buy it. But I was trying to help that old lady out. She just couldn't get that thing sold, and everybody looked at it, just turned it down, and I said, let's just give her $500, and that way she can rest, And so we paid $500 for that piece of junk, and quite honestly, if I'd have took it to the scrapyard that day, I'd have probably got $250, $350 for it. And that I would have been way ahead if I'd have just done that. I kind of wish I would have now. But I have pretty much rebuilt it, and it's pretty close to finished. So the reason I'm bringing that up today is that tomorrow morning, this is my plan. Now, you know how plans go. But my plan is right now that at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, I'm right at about the crack of dawn, I'm going to come down here, drag that trailer outside on the parking lot, and then I'm going to start doing the body work out there. And the reason I'm going to do it outside is because it is so dusty, and my shop is so tiny to begin with. There's barely room to get around the trailer inside the shop. So I'm going to kill two birds with one stone, give myself some room and some breathing room, and get it outside where I get rid of that dust. But I'm going to really work on that hard tomorrow morning, I hope, and try to knock out most of the body work that I'm planning to do. I'm not trying to make it look perfect. I don't even hardly care how it looks. I just want it to look better than it really looks bad right now. So I just want to try to improve the looks a little bit. Anyway, so that's the status of that project. I just mentioning again that if anybody is interested in doing Zoom calls, please just send me an email. And if you've already sent me an email and I haven't replied, I'm sorry. I will get back to you. It's just hard to keep up. But anyway, that's the way for now. That's the way we'll handle the Zoom thing, is just via email. Just send me an email if you're interested in doing a Zoom call. And a Zoom call, you might say, well, why would I want to do a Zoom call? Well, it's mostly to get one-on-one help with a project. If you're working on a guitar, mandolin, or something, and you're stuck, maybe either on a repair, or if you're building something from scratch and you just kind of want somebody to bounce ideas off of, I'd be happy to help you with that. Haven't talked about Cash lately. Cash, if you don't know, is my 10-year-old student. I've been teaching him guitar lessons, and totally gratis, by the way. I'm not charging him for the lessons. The young man he's been coming to our jams for years, actually. I mean, he was like 6 years old, I think, when he started. And quite honestly, no one could play with him because his timing was horrendous. And he was taking lessons, and again, I'm not going to mention any names or any places that he was taking these lessons, but he had been taking lessons for about 3 years. And several times I said to his grandparents, I said, please, bring him to me. Let me give him some lessons. He needs some help, Well, a couple years went by, and finally, just like a year ago, they said, yeah, we're going to bring him to you. So I've been giving him lessons now for the last several months. And anyway, it's working out really well. He had a lesson this past Wednesday, and he's almost. I mean, we're getting close to him doing his next live video for you guys. Now this one's much more difficult because he's singing, playing rhythm, of course, and he's also going to be picking lead on the song. And so there's a lot more to work out, and that's why there's been a delay. But he's doing really well. He's really going to get it. But again, the holdup is another timing issue. And in this case, he's good with the singing and the strumming on his timing, and he's even good with his picking on the timing. Where the timing problem comes in is he's having issues transitioning from the singing rhythm to the picking lead. When he transitions, he goes out of time. Now, he gets right back in time, but, I'm trying to get all of that worked out, trying to get it all smoothed out so that he's doing it real professionally, And there's no better time to learn that than when you're 10 years old. 10-year-old, in my opinion, is the magic age for learning how to play music. I've said it a billion times, and I've taught kids now for at least 25 years, if not longer. And I'm not lying to you when I tell you 10 years old is the magic age. If you can catch them at 10, you can turn them into a heck of a musician. And it's happened for me in many, many cases. I'm not going to drop any names, but I've had people come up to me going, wow, where do you find these musical genius kids, And it's catching them at that right age. And of course, the biggest part of the whole thing is they have to want to do it. That's the biggest part of all of it. You can't push them into it. If they've got the desire, 10 years old, though, is the time to start. Okay, moving on. The water heater video that I've been working on, I installed that little tiny water heater in my shop, and you can see it right there, boy, perfect timing. You can see the little water heater under the sink there. Anyway, that video I think it's going to be a good one. I think you'll like it. It's more than just connecting up hoses to the water heater. I had to do new electrical work and all kinds of things. Speaking of that, and again, these are questions that have come up, is why didn't I run a ground to that? Well, I'm not going to go into great detail about that, but there are pros and cons to running ground wires to your plumbing system. And I am not 100% convinced that's the way I want to approach it. It is also by code, so if you're meeting code, you're doing all right. Okay, so you should understand that. And by code, everything I did there is correct. And so, But a number of people have said, you should be running a ground to that. You should ground that to your water system, and there's good and bad to do that. So I'm not going to go into those details, but so I so far have elected not to ground it. I've just left it like it is. And, the thing is that 90% of the electric on this farm isn't grounded. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I've redone 75% of the electric on this farm pretty much, and completely tore out the wires and redid them correctly. So most of it is grounded now, but there are still plenty of places where there's no grounds. And just another side note to that, and I think I've told this before, but when we first moved here, we just kept having things burn up like crazy. I mean, like everything. Like our, like you have dish satellite service. Well, the dish receiver burned up. The wall warts would burn up, and I mean, just one after another, after another, after another. Every time we'd have a lightning storm or bad storm, something would burn up. Well, I got to investigating. Not only were the outlets not grounded, but the main boxes weren't grounded at all. There were no ground rods driven anywhere. And what you don't understand is, like one guy was correcting me saying, you shouldn't drive multiple ground rods. You should only have one ground. Well, yeah, that's true if you only have one drop from the pole. But my house has 3 different drops coming directly from the pole to the house. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. And so I had to drive aground to each of those drops. And that's what I meant. I didn't explain that before. So, I'm no dummy on electric. I really am not a dummy on electric. I'm not saying I'm the expert, end-all, be-all expert. I'm not. But I'm also no dummy. So you can pretty much bet that anything I've done here on electric has been done according to code and correctly. But anyway, moving on to the next thing. By the way, again, just to reiterate, the water heater video is nearly finished. I'll have that done today, and I will release that maybe just a couple hours after we're done here. Another question that keeps coming up is, have I gotten to do any more metal detecting? I am actually having withdrawals on that. I really want to get out there and do some metal detecting, especially now that I know there are Civil War relics here. My whole time we've owned this farm, we bought it in 1998. And ever since that day, I've said to myself and I've said to others, man, I got to tie this into the Civil War somehow. This place has to have been related to the Civil War. And you might say, well, why would you think that? Well, first of all, it's right on the main railroad line. The railroad line, now there's argument on this, and I'm not even sure I know which way it is. A lot of people absolutely guarantee that the line stopped at Rolla. It never came out this far during the Civil War. But then I've also read where it did stop at Arlington. Arlington was the very end, and Arlington's less than a mile from here as the crow flies. And then the second thing I was talking about why I wanted to tie it to the Civil War is that my valley is completely full of springs. There's water everywhere. And, if you know anything about the old times, springs were gold, man. When you had water coming out of the ground, you had gold. I mean, it was that kind of equivalency. And so those troops and army and thing would have been making use of these springs. So that's why I felt like it had to be tied into the Civil War. Well, sure enough, I've started finding Civil War relics here. I can't believe it. I mean, it's almost like too good to be true. I found a General Service coat button. I found quite a few mini balls of different calibers, not just one caliber. See, if you've just found one thing, you'd say, well, that was just a guy brought his gun home from the war, But that's not what's showing up here. Anyway, so I'm really excited about the metal detecting. I'm going to get back into it. But truthfully, it's so crazy hot and the ticks and chiggers are so bad, I probably won't get back into the metal detecting until the fall. Let's see. I've got a little bit of a drone video. People keep asking me to do drone videos. And this, quite honestly, I shot this drone video at least a year ago, probably. And let me give you the preface on this. What I was trying to do was line up my cell phone tower. I have a cell phone amplifier here on the farm. Because if you know anything about this farm, it's a giant valley. And so signals getting down here are very difficult. Thank you for that super chat, Christia Thomason. I'm very bad with pronouncing. A green super chat for the green screen. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much, Christia. I really appreciate that. But anyway, so I was trying to figure out how can I line up my antenna with the cell tower, which is about a mile away. And, you can't see it. So how do you line that up? So I lifted my drone up and tried to line it up with my little antenna and tried to point it at the cell tower. I tried to see it through the drone. So here, that's what you're about to see. And this is a short video. So that's what you're getting ready to see here. So take a look at this. So that's the drone up there. That's my little antenna right there in front of you. And there is a tower over on that horizon, which you may or may not be able to see. And I'll circle it. Right there is the cell tower. Now, in a minute, we're going to come back down here in the drone, and it's going to be almost perfectly lined up. And you'll be able to see it there. So there it is again. Right there is the cell tower. And you'll see how I've got that antenna has to point directly at that tower. And you can see that I've got it pretty close. It's pretty darn close, in fact. I'm kind of amazed how close it is. So, technology. I got to tell you, I love technology, and I'm sure you can tell that. I absolutely love technology. I mean, I designed computer systems for Southwestern Bell AT&T. I designed their biggest system they had, and anyway, it's just something that's carried over to this, and I love it. I just absolutely love it. So if you don't like technology, you're probably watching the wrong guy, because there'll probably be more as we go on. As now I've got time to deal with it. I'm not working on instruments all day long every day. And some other people said they were glad that I wasn't coughing as much. Trust me, it's still here. It ain't gone yet. It's in the chest. It's in the chest big time. And I may have to go get antibiotics, because I hate to do that. I like to let it go out on its own, fix on its own without the antibiotics. But honestly, it might not go away for a while. Let's see. I wanted to give you a reminder that the last Thursday of every month, we're going to try to do a live band concert. So please try to mark your calendars, mark your smartphones and things, put reminders in there that the last Thursday of every single month, we're going to try to do a live band concert. I'm really proud of where we're at with the band again. We had that COVID layoff. And quite honestly, we were pretty darn rusty when we got back together. I feel like we're just about at the top of our game. Are we as good as the boys down in the Acoustic Shop, the Chapmans? No, we're not that good. Those guys are just flipping incredible. I mean, they are absolutely beyond ridiculously good. We're pretty good, though. I mean, I think we're pretty good. I wouldn't be embarrassed to play in front of the Chapmans, but I'd be embarrassed to play the mandolin in front of Jeremy. Jeremy's so good on that mandolin, it's unbelievable. It's just crazy good. So anyway, the last Thursday of every month, and we hope you'll join us. And we're going to try to use some of this technology. It may blow up in my face, but we're going to try to take advantage of it and see how it goes. And speaking of the boys down there at the Acoustic Shop, here's another note that I had from, Bronson Taylor 7804 had this comment. He says, wow, did you see the Bill Monroe mandolin the boys in the Acoustic Shop got this weekend? It is beautiful. Yeah, it's a replica of Bill's actual busted up mandolin. And they actually scratch in all the breaks and things. They make it look just like the broken mandolin. It's an identical copy, if you will, as identical as you can make anything like that. And the cool thing about the boys down there in the Acoustic Shop is they actually have the same date in their mandolin. And it's not a fake date. That's the day they actually did finish, if you will. I mean, the mandolin was actually technically finished a little bit before that, but that's the date they put the label in there. They did put the label in that mandolin on that specific day. So it's pretty cool. Theirs is the only one with that date in it, I think. There were several of those mandolins built as the 100-year anniversary, but I think theirs is the only one with the specific date in it, which is pretty cool. So if you don't even know what I'm talking about in terms of the Acoustic Shop, be sure to check out the Acoustic Shop on YouTube. It's a music store down in Springfield, Missouri, run by the Chapmans. They're good friends of mine, and they're just incredible musicians. I mean, like, as good as anybody on the planet, and I'd put them up against anybody. I mean, they're that good. I'm not exaggerating at all. They're that good. So anyway, that's about it. Let me go to the actual questions here now. We've got a few. The first one is from Toyaman57, and this is not really a question, it's more of a comment. He says, adapt, overcome, and conquer, Jerry. It's what we all must do to live good life. For me, I enjoy everything you are willing to share on YouTube because because you think a lot like me. I have 25 acres in Harmony, North Carolina. You and I seem to face the same kind of equipment failures and property challenges. You're honest about your mistakes, even when it involves grinding off your fingernails. Yeah, And that's from an expert on a grinder. I'll flat tell you I'm an expert on a grinder. I really am. If I'm going to brag about anything, it's about my grinding expertise. And yet I grab my fingers almost off. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. I noticed in your green screen pictures you have a field where you may be farming it. If so, could you share what you grow and what you sell to the market? I would like to try farming some of the property too someday, but I have no idea what I should grow or how to go about selling it. Take care, Jerry. You do you, and let the others start their own channel if they don't like yours. Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate the kind words there and everything. In terms of the fields growing anything, I'm not sure what you saw. We have several little gardens, and those are all by my wife, because you know me, I don't eat anything out of a garden except corn, sweet corn, and potatoes. And that's pretty much it. I don't eat anything else out of a garden. Nothing. Zero, nothing, not one thing. And people say, and then the next thing that people jump on me about it goes, well, that's why you have arthritis. You don't eat this and you don't eat that. No, I have arthritis because my mother had it severely, and so did my father. And they also turned gray very early in life, and so did I. I started at 16. So I'm going to name it, I'm going to blame it on genetics. You can blame it on eating this or that or whatever. I'm actually going to say that by not eating vegetables, perhaps it's held my arthritis off a lot longer because they were both crippled at a much younger age. So maybe not eating the vegetables is a good thing. I'm just saying, you don't know, and I don't know. So anyway, moving on to the next one. Curtis Mealer from Newman, Georgia. Hey, Jerry, I know from watching you that you have more projects than you can say grace over, but I was wondering if you have, and I got to click them more here, have been at the old home. Oh, metal detecting. This was the question about the metal detecting. So Curtis Mealer 6129 is asking about the metal detecting. And like I told you, yeah, I am having withdrawals. Trust me, I really am. I want to get out there so bad. And what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to try a different approach this time. We've got a finish mower for our well, it'll fit any of our tractors. We got 3 tractors. But anyway, we have a finish mower. And I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to take one path, down the field. And I'm going to mow that. And then I'm going to go detect it. And then I'm going to mow the path next to it and detect that. And that way I think I can cover the ground more efficiently. You think you're covering it all, but you're not very efficient for the most part when you're trying to cover a giant field like these are. So anyway, that's going to be my new approach, and I'm going to try that this fall. The next question comes from Bronson Taylor, 7804. Maybe I already did this one. No, I didn't. He had that other question, though, that I answered earlier. He says, excuse me. He says, I'm a longtime viewer of yours. How is the quarter sawing invention working out for you? Well, the truth is, I haven't been able to use it. It works. I think it's going to work just fine. The reason I built it, I thought, I kind of built it for some of that walnut, sort of. That wasn't the main reason. The main reason is for the sycamore. I've got a couple of big sycamore trees I've got my eyes on, and I'll wait till wintertime to cut them down when the sap is down. And so it'll be wintertime before I really get to test the quarter saw rig, but more than likely you'll see a bunch of videos on that whenever I do get to cut down those big sycamore trees and then saw them up for instrument wood, which I may sell. I don't know. But anyway, I've got that in mind, and we'll get to it. But I just truly haven't been able to use it much. Just too many projects. Sewing 1243 is asking if someone were to install the portable water heater downstream of a home's primary water heater, would the second water heater be called a hot water heater. Because somebody corrected me and says, it's not a hot water heater, it's a water heater. Well, I think they've got a good point there, but actually, I'd even have to correct you, and I'd have to call it a hot, let's see, I had it down in my head earlier, a re-hot water heater. I don't know, something like that. I can't think of how I said it now. But anyway, it would be a reheating water heater instead of just a hot water heater. But anyway, it didn't go off very well since I couldn't think of what I was going to say. The next one is from MVRUSSISON line. I have no idea what that's trying to say. Russian online? MV Russian online, it kind of looks like. Jerry, got a date planned yet to pull your fiber? Yeah, that was where that question came from. He says he has to pull about 200 feet. Yeah, I've got to pull about 130 meters, so mine's quite a bit more than that even. It's 300 and some feet. I forget how many feet now. I think 350 or something like that. But anyway, yeah, I will wait until winter to do that, or at least fall. And then here's that question about the hands. Are your hands any better? And no, they really aren't, unfortunately. I wish they were. And then Chip Wood, 5017, he says, how about a video of the Rosa Luck bloopers? Well, I'm kind of embarrassed and ashamed to say that they might not be fit for airing. Sometimes a little bit of language slips in there. I'm not a perfect person. Yeah. But honestly, for the most part, I don't. Maybe it's just because it's happening to me. They don't seem like they're funny to me. Maybe they never seem like they're funny when they happen to you. I don't know. But anyway, I'm going to try to keep that more in mind down the road and maybe do more bloopers. Anyway, it's a good question. But and then Chip has another question. It says, for Friday, are you able to reproduce small instrument parts such as bridges, nuts, saddles, and the original parts if the original parts are sent to you? Well, the answer is yes and no. Yes, I can do that. No, I don't really want to do that. And the no part of that is, even when I was working on instruments full time, I didn't want to do that. I always returned those down, for the most part. I did an occasional one. But they just take so much time, and quite honestly, there's very little profit in it. And if you're going to spend a lot of time on something, you might as well get paid for it. But nobody's going to want to pay $50 for that little tiny saddle, you know what I mean? And or a nut or whatever, or $100. I mean, a nut's even worse. Actually, a nut's almost impossible to make and send it to somebody. They never fit. You have to fit those on the instrument, in my opinion. But anyway, I appreciate the question, Chip, but I just don't want to deal with that. And then the last one here I think we've got on from yesterday's video is Jacko P01 JAKOPPE001. I don't know what that means. Hello from San Leon, Texas. If I drive to Philly to visit my sister and friends, I may drive through or via Missouri. Could I drive through and listen to you all play and sing? And then he says Celtic music. Well, we don't do much Celtic music, but you can certainly come by and listen to us. We play every Tuesday evening at Dickey's Barbecue Pit in Rolla, so from about 6 to 8:30. And, if you happen to come by on the last Thursday of the month, I wouldn't care if anybody sat in on our live show here in the shop. I mean, that'd be okay with me too. So, I mean, if anybody's wanting to come through and sit in on our live performance, feel free. I'll put you to work and make you read comments and stuff. Okay, that's it. That's all the questions I had from yesterday. So let's turn our attention to today. Presently, we have 146 viewers, which is very nice. Let me start at the top. It looks like Paul Akers was the first one that made a comment today. And Ronald Todd says, loud and clear today, Jerry. Hooray. Well, that's good. I've been keeping my eye on the microphone. You know, by the way, the last one, and we established that the last time I had a mic problem, it was different than the previous ones. And I'm pretty sure I know what caused the last one. You know, I hate to complain about this Streamlabs software. First of all, it's free. Second of all, it is really awesome software. I mean, I just want to be clear about that. But it is also, at least in my opinion, now they may have a good explanation for every one of these things, but I can show them at least a dozen bugs in their software. I mean, there's just bugs all over it, in my opinion. They may be purposeful put there. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about, what I call a bug. And that is, I absolutely guarantee you 1,000%, I did not change my microphone. It changed it for me. That's why the mic failed the last time. It changed it to something like a default, and under the default, it had these cryptic numbers and things, you know, machine code language type stuff. And so it didn't actually have my mic selected. So once I figured that out, I went in and reselected my mic, and it was fine. Now, why did it change? I don't know. You can do other things with this software. You can be changing something entirely different, and it'll change something like that. To me, that's a bug. There's no reason it should mess with your microphone if you're messing with something else. Now, the programmers may say, well, that's because we do X, Y, Z, you know, I don't know. But if I was over the system and those guys were programming and they came to me with an excuse like that, I'd say, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to fix that. We are not tolerating that. You know, that's the way I did it when I was designing systems at Southwestern Bell. I wouldn't tolerate those kinds of, you know, excuses. And really, that's the problem. So I kind of don't think, knock on wood, I kind of don't think we have a mic problem anymore. It was a software problem, them changing my mic. So I'll just have to be very careful to watch and make sure they don't change it again. It's happened more than once. It's not just one time thing. I've seen it many times, actually. Okay, moving now on to the next thing. Mark Brown says, Jerry, how long in real time, how long did it take you to build the world's most famous mandolin? I don't know. It's really hard to keep track of it. You know, I tried to keep track on, I don't remember if it was a guitar or mandolin. I can't remember. But I did try to keep track one time on building an instrument. And believe it or not, it was only roughly about 40 hours. In fact, I think it was less than 40. I think it was like 37 hours. So it's not as much as you think, but you can't build it in just one 37-hour stretch. You know, you're building it over time because you got to let things dry and etc. So honestly, I don't know. That's the truthful answer, but I'm going to say in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 hours, honestly. And I know that probably seems like that's crazy fast for most of you, but honestly, that's about right, I think. Ronald Todd, as a wood turner, guitar lover, it's nice to see some pictures of your shops and equipment. Well, good. Yeah, someone else made that suggestion, but it was funny because I read it in their comments yesterday, but I had already, and I'm not making this up, I had already went out and took pictures in the shop. I thought, you know, why not? But they made the exact same comment, and I put a comment on top of their comment that said, well, I guess great minds think alike, because I just went out and took a bunch of pictures. And, you know, and by the way, this is just a scant first attempt. I'll get a lot more, and this will change over time. And so just so you know, this is not locked in, and it's going to be this way forever. Zappa says, Jerry, would you need to get someone in to terminate the fiber cable from the shop to the house? No, I don't need to have it terminated. This is pre-terminated cable. I bought it just a little bit longer than I need. I think it's only about 40 or 50 feet longer than I need. And with fiber, that's not an issue. When you're using Ethernet, that is kind of an issue. You don't want your cable much longer than you need on Ethernet. But in fiber, you can run it pretty much as long as you want to run it, because it's traveling at the speed of light. More than that, though, really the bigger reason that the fibers, the length doesn't matter as much is because there's no potential for interference. See, the fiber, like lightning strikes, don't affect it. All kinds of things. There's just things that don't affect fiber that would affect a metal cable. So anyway, at least that's my understanding. I'm no expert on it. Zappa again says, Jerry, don't forget to wear a good dust mask when sanding that trailer. Yes, I will. That's one of the main reasons I quit, because well, first of all, I hate wearing dust masks, but if I got to wear them, I'd prefer to wear them outside where you can get some breathing. But inside like that, it just gets clogged up really fast. So, yeah, I will. Thank you. The next one looks like Ben Norton, 86. I think it would be nice to see some of your own builds and workshop tools and jigs, etc. on the green screen. Well, that's what's on here a little bit. What I did was I put just for now, I put 2 farm pictures followed by a shop picture, followed by a instrument picture. And that's what I've done so far. I'll try to mix it up down the road too and do more of it. And again, there's the Christia Thompson super chat. Thank you very kindly for that. Clyde Lewis. Jerry, do you have any tips for how to keep the nozzle on those tall, tight bond glue bottles from getting stuck with dry glue? Excuse me. I'm really getting kind of choked up there for a minute. Yeah, he was wondering if I came up with any tricks on that. The answer is, Clyde, not so much. I have the same problem. Maybe somebody does have one. I haven't Googled it or looked out there to see if there's a better option. What I usually do is I pull the lid off and then I take a screwdriver or some small screwdriver or something, get in there and just rake it out of there and then put it back on. That's kind of the way I've been dealing with it for all these years. It does happen quite a bit, actually. NorCal Bob says, what can I use as a call for CA glue when the glue won't stick to? Well, I mean, for the most part, glue, the CA glue doesn't stick to any of that slick kind of plastic, and I don't know the name of it, but I had this. This is just a tiny little fragment of it, but this plastic here, and the green screen's messing with that. But anyway, this plastic here came off of the plastic binders. Southwestern Bell had gazillions of these plastic binders, and I was charged one day with destroying all of them and throwing them away. And I ripped the covers off of a lot of them and saved the plastic. And it's a real slick kind of plastic, and CA glue doesn't stick to that. So I use that. You could also use things like wax paper or I don't know, what is that, parchment paper? That's not the right word. That other kind of paper that they use for cooking. But anyway, you can do stuff like that too. So I've always just used the plastic myself. Seems to work pretty good for me. And like cutting board plastic like that would be great if you can find that kind of plastic. Let me move down. It kind of scrolled a little bit on me. I don't know if I've lost my place here. I think I found it back. Zappa's asking, Jerry, going gray at 16. I feel for you. But I would take that over starting to lose my hair at 22. Yeah, I got no complaints about it. I'll just tell you a quick side story on that. As most of you know, my dad had a lawn service my whole life. we lived in a very rich part of St. Louis County. Now, we weren't rich by any stretch. We just lived in an old farmhouse, had 10 acres that we rented, and had horses on it. Well, that was the draw to the rich kids, because the rich kids would come over, ride our horses, and I would go swim in their indoor-outdoor swimming pools, and it was a great way to grow up. I mean, they had maids and butlers, and I'm not kidding. They actually had maids and butlers, and they had maids fixing us lunch. You know, it was just awesome. It really was. And I lived in a little rundown, shacky farmhouse. But anyway, where I started with that is, my dad had that lawn service, and right in the middle of all that, and we were cutting all these rich people's lawns and things. Well, at lunchtime, we would stop at different fast food restaurants for lunch, and I never will forget when I found that first gray hair. We walked in. I know where it was. I can't name the name of it. It wasn't like a Burger King or a McDonald's. It was a burger joint, but it was a unique one. Anyway, I know right where it was. I just can't think of the name of it. And so I went into the bathroom to wash my hands because everything's just covered in dirt and grease. And the light and the wind and that mirror was there. I looked at my, and I had black hair, man. I mean, really black. What is that? And it was a big old gray hair coming right out of the front. And the first place that turned gray was right in the front, and I don't know that it was related to it, but I got kicked in the head right in that same spot by a horse when I was pretty little. And I always wondered if that's why that turned gray first. But it was right in the front, right in it, almost like a horseshoe shape that turned gray. It was a pony that kicked me in the head. The pony threw me off backwards, and I landed right on I did a backflip off the pony, landed right on my rear end on my back. That's probably why I have back problems to this day. And anyway, at the moment I hit the ground, the pony kicked me like that. Just laid me out, So anyway, that's the place that turned gray, and it kind of turned gray right in that spot. So I don't know if that had anything to do with that or not, but you didn't pay any extra for that story, so feel fortunate that you didn't have to pay for that. Anyway, moving on to the next one here. I'm skipping them if I don't see the question marks because there's just too much to read for me. I'm too slow of a reader. Gotta Fly Lee says, how in the world did you get that stump and anvil in your shop? Yeah, that's a heavy stump, trust me. Well, I mean, when you do as much firewood as I do, yeah, that's not much of an issue. And I got plenty of equipment, so I don't know how I got that one in there. Quite honestly, it's been in there pretty much since I've owned this farm. I put it in there and put the anvil on it. The anvil, I'll tell you another little side story. The anvil came from Jack Zert. Jack Zert, and you can probably, I haven't looked him up, so I don't know for sure you'll find anything, but I'm pretty sure you will. He was a world-renowned photographer. He very, very well known. He was, according to some account, I can't remember where I remember reading this, but according to some account, he was the world's largest private stock photographer. And he was an amazing man. And most of the things he had were for props, were for taking photos. And the anvil was just a prop. He didn't use it. He never laid a hammer on it. You know what I mean? It was just a prop for photographs. And he had tons and tons of things like that for photographs. We got an old crank phone from him that was a prop for photographs. In fact, now this wasn't for photographs, but we also got the green John Deere tractor from him. He was just a great old guy. And my wife took care of him, him and his wife. They were both very old as when we knew them. And the cool thing about Jack was, it's just the coolest thing. And you think he's got to be exaggerating. And I promise you I'm not. I'm not exaggerating this much. You would say something like, yeah, we're going to go on vacation to the Wisconsin, and this is one I remember. We're going to go on vacation to the Wisconsin Dells. And he instantly would go, he gets all fired up. He goes, oh, I've got a photograph on that. And he would walk over. Now, keep in mind, this man he's quote unquote, the world's largest private stock photographer. That, true or not, I don't know. I'd say true because I could see what he had. He'd have literally dozens of these, 4-drawer file cabinets completely full of photographs. And the thing about it was, no matter what your subject that you brought up, he could walk directly to the drawer, to the folder, to the picture, and pull it out. And not have to look up nothing. And I'm not exaggerating. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I can't find my dang screwdriver. And he can walk in among, it's got to be millions of pictures, and walk in there and just reach in and pull it out and go, here's a picture of that. And he did it every time. I've never seen anything like it in my life. How he did it, how he kept that in his head, I have no idea. But he could do it. And I'm not exaggerating that much. Crazy. It was mind-boggling. When he passed away, the sad news on this is that when he passed away, his property was willed to the Catholic Church. And he had made out a will, and in that will, he had willed several things, private things, to different individuals. He willed several things to Sue, like some furniture, the tractor. And what had happened just before he passed away was this Weasel, and I'm going to call him Weasel, and that's the nicest name I can say, because I could think of a whole lot of names I'd like to say, but I won't say them on camera. This Weasel kind of got in with Jack. So, you got to understand, Jack was already pretty senile at this point, and convinced Jack to sign over power of attorney to this Weasel. And this Weasel and his really, really scumbag lawyer. I mean, this guy, you can't even. I mean, you picture scumbag, this guy's got his face all over it. Anyway, they convinced Jack to sign over power of attorney. And of course, guess where the property wound up? Yeah, it didn't go to the Catholic Church. Sue didn't get any of the furniture or any of the other things that were in the well. They did let her keep the tractor. And the reason they did that, and I know the reason they did it for sure, and in fact, I think I even heard somebody say it, was that they had to do that to make it look good on paper, So anyway, she did end up with the tractor, but I think that's all she got. Now, Jack had given me the anvil years before that, and he had given us the phone years before that. But it's really a sad deal. It is a weasel, just a scumbag weasel came in and just stole everything. Anyway, and if in case you're thinking that I cared about what we didn't get, I could care less. The only thing I cared about was, filling his last wishes. And of course, his last wishes were not filled. And it's just so sad. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. Trying to see the next question marks. It looks like, so that was about the Stump and Anvil, and that got me off on that tangent. So let me see here. James Akers is the next one I think I see. Jerry, any thoughts on sales of the measurements of your Uncle's Lloyd lower mandolin? Any thoughts on sales of the measurements? No, James, I'm not going to part with that ever. Yeah, I don't know why. I'm just not. I don't know why. I don't even have a good reason, I don't guess. Just one of them deals. Money's not everything. And I don't know. I don't know. Probably should, I guess, but I'm not going to. Bill Dedrick. Jerry, how many acres is your property? How many acres is JR's property? I'm not 100% sure about JR's. I'm going to say 160, I think is what his is. Mine's 280. His might be a little more than that. I can't remember. But anyway, his has got, not a lot of river frontage, but it does have river frontage. Mine is mostly just surrounded by Mark Twain National Forest. And his property line, of course, and mine are shared on the one end. Jeff Purist says, nothing will stick to a Bondo spreader. Well, that's the same, almost exactly the same kind of plastic as that yellow plastic I was showing you. Now that you say that, though, but that's a good example. Yeah, that's a good example. So, yeah, one of those Bondo spreaders. You can get those spreaders, by the way, really cheap at Harbor Freight. You can get a pack of 3 of them or something like that. And I think they even sell really big packs, too, by the way. But if I remember, I think I saw really large packs of those. But you can buy the 3-pack for just $1 or something. I mean, it's like almost nothing. So that's a good point. Thanks, Jeff. Danny Fisher, good morning, Jerry. How did you start your channel? Also, how long does it take to see financial gain? I still love your channel. The pictures are awesome. You have a beautiful farm. Thank you very much, Danny. Yeah, well, I've told the story a couple times, Danny, but roughly 10 years ago, because it's going to be 10 years in November or October. Either October or November, it'll be 10 years. And roughly at that time, I was telling my buddy, Ron, he was the guy that was making the saddles for me for a short time. Anyway, I told Ron, I said, Ron, my retirement's running out. I'm losing money here. I wasn't broke yet, but you don't want to wait till you're broke before you make your decisions, because it's always hard to deal from a broke perspective. You know what I'm saying? I could see the handwriting on the wall. I could see it was going downhill fast. And I said to Ron, I'm going to have to sell this farm. He just about died. He's going, there's no way. You can't sell this farm. I go, I'm telling you, Ron, I can see the money running out, and I'm not going to have any. So the truth is, I was trying to get more business on the instruments. So I didn't know anything about YouTube, to be truthful, at that point in time. I said, maybe if I put out a few videos on YouTube, maybe it'll bring in a little bit more business. Well, that was the understatement of the 21st century. Yeah. No kidding. I mean, you guys, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I am not exaggerating that much. You guys saved this farm for me, and that's the truth. So anyway, it took a while. Your question about how long? It took me a long time. Now, keep in mind, the instrument thing seems like a big deal, but it's a really tiny niche thing. If you're not a musician, I'm not saying non-musicians don't watch. There are some, but on a percentage basis, it's a pretty small percentage. So, if you're not a musician, you're not going to be into my channel. So it took me a very long time. Now, conversely, I told my son, who you can see his farm right behind my head there. Well, actually, it's still kind of behind my head there. His farm, when I told him, I said, son, you need to start yourself a YouTube channel. And I said, with all these animals and stuff, you'll outgrow me in a week. I said, now, granted, it took him a little while, too. It probably took him 8 months before it started to roll. But now it's really rolling, And he's run into a problem, though. There's some kind of a hostile takeover that happens to some channels that are growing fast, and he's kind of run into that. And his money has dropped way down, and YouTube doesn't really help you with it. And so I don't know. It's so sad that there's so many scams out there and so many people that are just scumbags. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They're just scumbags. And trust me, I have no sympathy for a scumbag. And, what I wouldn't do to him, I can't tell you. Trust me. Anyway, so he's run into that. But in my case, I really never have run into too much of that. Now, the money will fluctuate a lot from one month to another. I'm at a point now where it's stable enough now that mine's fairly stable, knock on wood, and it's basically saved my farm. I have zero retirement left. I have zero, none, not a penny. I have a little bit of inheritance from my mom and dad, from Sue's mom and dad, is quite honestly. And so we have that nest egged out, and then the rest of it, we're pretty much just living on our YouTube revenue for the most part. I mean, we've got the rental retreat thing, that's helping. And I've got a few little miscellaneous things that help. But honestly, YouTube, you guys saved really me. You really did. Okay, moving on. Ronald Todd, CA glue, they say, won't stick to silicone. That may be true. I don't know all the details there. Mark Brown, sorry, Jerry, forgot question marks on my question. Do you have to add a booster on a fiber cable over 300 feet? No. Fiber doesn't need that. You might need that on Ethernet. In fact, I know you need it on Ethernet. Old Hickory says, I love the stories, Jerry. Well, thank you. Paul Lanier, do not let anyone find your mandolin specs. I don't know why. I just don't want to share that. I've shared everything else. Like, I haven't hidden anything. That's the only thing. And I don't know, it was my uncle's mandolin, and, I don't know. I just don't want to share that. I've shared everything else, and I don't mind sharing everything else. Moving on. Let's see. Dean Barnes. Jerry, any chance you feel up to ending today's show with a song for us on your mandolin? Well, thank you. That's nice of you. Actually, you must be psychic, because I was kind of thinking about doing that. I was just thinking about it. I wasn't sure I was going to do it, but now that you've asked, I will. The one thing I've always told my band, and I've said it from day one, is don't ever miss a request. If somebody makes a request, you always fill the request. So you made a request, and I'll fill it. One last question, and then we'll do that. Blackjack Guitar says, YouTube controls the algorithm, Jerry. They don't want to pay channels what they're worth. See it often. Cheers. Yeah, I can't hardly complain about YouTube too much. The only complaint is they're so big, you can't get a hold of anybody, you can't talk to anybody. But on the other hand, think of the millions of people they're supporting these days. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I don't really have any complaints. You're not going to hear me bad mouthing them. They've saved my farm, so I'm okay with it. Could it be better? Sure, it could be better. I don't care about money. Money's not my thing. As long as I can pay my bills, save my farm, I'm happy. And that's it. I mean, you just don't know anybody that cares less about material things than me. And especially cars. I could care less. You could be driving a Lamborghini and I'll be driving a Dodge pickup truck, and I'm just as happy as you are. That's the truth. This was the second mandolin I built. This was, I think, 1986, if I remember right. Yep. Same year I built my first guitar. And I've told the story several times, but I'm going to tell it again since I'm holding this mandolin, because it's just a cool story, I think. Maybe you don't think so, but I worked for Southwestern Bell, and I had recently received it was sort of like a promotion. It was more of just a job change, but anyway, it was like a transfer, but it was an upgrade in jobs. And I had a company car, and it was the very first company car that was air conditioned in Southwestern Bell. And on my lunch hours, I was outside meeting customers face to face. So I was an outside rep instead of an inside rep on the phone, So I was outside meeting customers face to face. But on my lunch hours, often I would just drive, like stop at a hardware store and walk through a hardware store. I know that sounds stupid for most people, but for me, no one, you know how I am. I love just wandering through a hardware store, just looking at stuff and, seeing new tools and new things and, whatever. Well, I happened to be in this hardware store that day on my lunch hour, and they had a big stack of 2x4s that was, probably close to 4 feet tall, close to 4 feet wide. And I didn't care anything about 2x4s. I didn't need a 2x4. But I happened to look at the board they were stacked on. And I just went bonkers over this board. I'm going like, that, I got to have that board. And so I grabbed the manager and I tell him, I said, see that board that your 2x4, would you sell that? And he's going, that's the stack board. We don't sell that board. I go, I know that, but I want that board. I'll pay you whatever you want for it. And he's like, there's no way. We're not selling that. I said, no, please, really, I'll pay you anything you want for it. I'll unstack the lumber and stack it back myself. And he's going, okay, I'll have one of the boys help you. So we unstacked it all. We stacked it back up. I took the board up to the register, and I said, okay, after all that trouble, how much do you want for it? I was prepared to pay $20, $25. Keep in mind, this is in the 80s. And he says, $1.50. So this mandolin top cost me $1.50. I can't play. Can't get my fingers to work. So we won't pick much. We'll just play and sing. Now I chose this particular song because this is probably going to be the first song that I put on my little jamming series that I'm going to try to create. Don't hold me to it. I'm going to get to it when I can get to it. But I'm going to try to get this out before too long. So I picked this song because I call this the Bluegrass National Anthem. It's called the Blue Ridge Cabin Home. Every single bluegrass band on the planet knows this song. I mean, I say that. I'm sure it's not true, but it's one of those kind of deals where almost everybody knows this song. And it's just in case you want to play along. And again, I'm going to try to make this into my first episode in my play along series. I'm going to explain that there's patterns to these different songs. Well, this song is what I call a circle pattern. It just goes in a circle. It's G, C, D, G, C, D, G, C, D, G, C, D, G, C, D. It never changes throughout the whole song. That's why it's fairly easy to play a song like this. Or in terms of numbers, it's 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5. Now, there are other patterns. There's a pivot pattern, which would be like 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 4, 1, 5. But this doesn't do that. This just goes in a circle. 1, 4, 5, 1, 4, 5, all the way around. So here we go. And I'm playing it in the key of G in case you want to play along. There's a well-beaten path on this old mountainside where I wandered when I was a lad. And I wandered alone to the place I call home in those Blue Ridge hills far away. Oh, I love those hills of old Virginia. From those Blue Ridge hills I did roam. And when I die, won't you bury me on the mountain far away to my Blue Ridge mountain home? My thoughts wander back to that ramshackle shack in those Blue Ridge hills far away, where my mother and dad are laid there to rest, and they're sleeping in peace together there. Oh, I love those hills of old Virginia. From those Blue Ridge hills I did roam. And when I die, won't you bury me on the mountain far away to my Blue Ridge mountain home?
return to the old mountain home with a sigh. I've been longing for days gone by. And when I die, won't you bury me on the old mountainside? Make my resting place upon the hill so high. Oh, I love those hills of old Virginia. From those Blue Ridge hills I did roam. And when I die, won't you bury me on the mountain, far away to my Blue Ridge mountain home. Far away to my Blue Ridge mountain home. There you go. Anyway, that I call that the Bluegrass National Anthem. And I mean, seriously, because everybody knows that song. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you all for being so nice to me today. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for the super chats, all the support you've given me. Thank you for saving my farm. We will see you on the next video, and be watching, by the way, for the video on installing the water heater and the electric and all that bit too. Thank you very much. We'll see you then.